So, Derek, I heard you got the chance to go down to New York to try out the Nintendo Switch Lite.
I did. I actually got invited by Nintendo to come up there and play the Switch Lite for about an hour and a half and really get a sense of how it's different from the normal Switch, which is interesting to see because we do now have that Switch revision that's out there that has even better battery life. And I guess the whole idea of this preview was to give a better sense of why this works as a portable console, why Nintendo is going this route. And they didn't have any new games there to play. All of it was old stuff like Mario Maker and Breath of the Wild and what have you. It was all designed to focus entirely on the Switch Lite itself.
So, did you play on all the different colors or just the one?
I played on the grayscale version and the yellow version. The blue version was highly in demand because I was with different people. The way it sort of was set up is that we got to the location, signed in, and then we were assigned a person who basically was monitoring each Switch Lite. If you wanted to have a different color, you had to switch a person too, because there was no tether to them, but basically they did not leave that thing from their site. But they also helped out and answered any questions you might have and things of that nature. So I got the chance to go on with both, and we had those pictures from Gamescom where we showed off all the colors. It was really, I didn't feel like there was too much of a need to go into like all the different colors, but you see some pictures of the gray one and the yellow one, and they're nice.
I mean, I guess seeing them in pictures is kind of different to seeing them in person, but what was your favourite colour out of the ones that you got to play around with?
You know what? I don't mind yellow. Gray is still a little it's the very basic one, and it's fine. It didn't bother me, but it's not the one I would definitely go towards. Honestly, yellow kind of became my favorite as I was playing with it. It just felt like a very warm color that it just kind of got attached to. The thing is, the system feels good. It definitely feels like a smaller Switch. It doesn't have the Joy-Cons disconnected, but because of that, it also feels a bit firmer, like it like a complete system rather than, you can kind of feel a little bend to the Switch when you're using them with the Joy-Cons in handheld mode.
I guess the same is kind of true with the 2DS. I always felt that was really comfortable to hold. So how are the buttons on the Switch Lite? How's the D-pad and how are the shoulder buttons on this thing?
As far as the buttons, they feel basically the same as what we've had before. Obviously the controller is a little smaller because they have a size comparison with the Joy-Con, and they are about an inch smaller than what it is before. But the button sizes feel, I don't know if they're changed. I didn't think to directly compare that, at least to make a mental note of it, but they still felt comfortable. I had no issue hitting the buttons using anything. The analog sticks basically felt the same as what they are on the normal Joy-Con, but the big highlight for all of this is definitely the D-pad. It is not segmented at all. It's not like they just have the segmented buttons and just pop the D-pad on there and called it a day. Like, no, this is an actual D-pad. And I'm a person who actually didn't mind the segmented buttons for the digital control for 2D games. Like I got used to it. I was like, okay, this isn't so bad. But as soon as I started using the actual one, boy, I couldn't go back. It was hard to go back. It was like, this just feels so comfortable and so good, and just made me think, why didn't Nintendo just release a version of the Joy-Con that actually has a D-pad on it? Because it really, I almost think it felt better than the D-pad on the Pro Controller.
I wouldn't be surprised, because the Pro Controller actually does use 4 buttons. It's just that there's a D-pad mesh on top of it. So if you click down, you can feel like a quite a clicky response. So I wonder if the Switch Lite has the same kind of thing, or whether it's just a proper, full-fledged D-pad.
It's hard to say for sure without doing a deeper look at it, so I don't want to be definitive on this, but it feels like a proper one.
Nice. So this could be one of the best ways to play Switch games.
At least the 2D games, yeah.
Yeah, like when playing Tetris 99 on Switch, I'm always having problems with the Pro Controller because that kind of button layout doesn't really work very well for precision movements. So the best way to play that is with that split Joy-Con. But maybe now the Switch Lite might be the most comfortable way to play that kind of game.
It's very possible. The thing is, it's like, there's a lot of the obvious things that have been changed, like the matte finish, so it definitely doesn't pick up on the oils from your fingers anymore. It was hot out, so my hands were actually naturally sweaty, and it didn't carry that moisture at all. Like it didn't feel like it, and it had a bit of a not a rough texture, but it was definitely more coarse than what you're used to with the normal Switch. And it wasn't uncomfortable at all. It allowed a bit more grip to the system, which is good because it is meant to be portable. So it all worked out really well and honestly felt really comfortable.
Sounds really good for kids as well. Like the way you're describing it makes it sound very durable. And I wonder if like you dropped it, if it would be fine. I guess the analog sticks are kind of a natural protection against the screen anyway, because if it falls, it's going to bounce off those. But it sounds pretty sturdy.
Yeah, I asked them if I could drop it and test that, but they didn't let me. They were a little against that. But yeah, it felt good, and otherwise the system looks pretty much the same, just a little bit smaller than the normal Switch. All the inputs are basically in the same exact spot. The volume control, audio jack, where you put your game cards in. The grill for the airflow at the top is a little bit different, designed differently, and we'll have a comparison up with the Switch itself so you can see those changes yourself in another video. That's the only major change I saw. If you look on the back, the kickstand, of course, is not there anymore. It's been removed completely, and that's where they hid the mini SD card slot for expanding your memory, and now that's just out in the open. It's just like a little tab that you flip up, almost like the game card slot at the top. And the charging, you still charge it from the bottom. I tested it out with my previous charger for the regular Switch just to see if it was the exact same thing. It is. It's pretty obvious. And yeah, I mean, as far as the build, it's smaller, it's comfortable, and it feels like a firm, steady unit. It's a little bit lighter, of course, but it felt well distributed and just very well balanced. Like, this feels like a good portable system.
Could you see yourself using it instead of your current Switch, though? I guess you as a person probably aren't the core market for this, because you kind of need your Switch for video out. But just for general, like, being out and about, would you use a Switch Lite?
Honestly, I think it works better for being out and about than the regular Switch. It's a little odd to say, but it's more compact. It still looks really good. The screen's, pops and all that. And it just felt like a natural fit. Now, I don't do handheld mode that often unless I'm traveling, so I never felt a need to get it. And I don't feel like the Switch Lite is quite marketed towards me because I am mainly focused on TV gaming as far as that's concerned. But as far as actual handheld gaming, this does feel like a better alternative to the normal Switch. The normal Switch, of course, has that back and forth mentality that works really well. But it does work well. Now, one thing that might run into issues, I'm not sure, is that there is no auto brightness mode. Don't know exactly the reason for why that's not there, but it might be to do with the finish, where they'd just be more expensive to get that in, or they're just trying to keep costs down, or something like that. But that's a little different. But when I turned that off on my normal Switch and compared the brightness, they were basically exactly the same. So you're basically getting this exact same system with slightly better battery life and a lot more portable as far as packing it along and taking it places and whatnot. And you'll be interested in this. It still has full gyro control.
Nice.
I was playing Breath of the Wild and I was using it to aim the arrow and was all good to go. So basically all the features that you know of from the Switch are still there outside of the auto light balancing and actually being able to dock.
Nice. That's really impressive stuff. So games like Splatoon 2 will play just fine on the Switch Lite.
Yep.
One thing that people are going to say in the comments is, does it have Joy-Con drift? And I know this is basically impossible to test just from a demo, because Joy-Con drift is something that builds up over time. But did you feel like the analog sticks were a bit different on the Switch Lite, or did they feel kind of similar to the current Switch?
They felt kind of similar. I held one, played around with it, but went to the other, played around with it, and it basically felt the same. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. I don't know if that's going to affect things, because it's mostly internal, so I'm not sure if that's a big change. I did ask them about this. I forgot to do it at the event itself, but I reached out to them before this in order to get a statement about what they might do and how, if people have to be fearful of Joy-Con drift. And Nintendo of America just put it out there themselves, saying, we expect our hardware to perform as designed. That's basically a very stock answer. Can't expect much out of it. It doesn't give us any information, but I'm assuming they're going to try to prevent it from doing the whole drifting aspect, I hope. And the thing is, it is all one unit. If you go to the Find controllers, the icon just shows a Switch, like the Switch Mini itself, in whole, rather than having the core system in the middle and the two Joy-Cons on the side.
So yeah, that's probably not the best answer, but we can't expect much more out of them than that. Were there any other features of the Switch Lite that would differ, that sort of differ to the current Switch? Like, was the main menu the same? Were the settings all the same?
Settings were the same. It looked basically the same. It had all the same features. They had it in airplane mode the entire time, so I couldn't test having it connect to the controllers and all that. But they talked about the syncing and whatnot, and they said it is possible to play like Mario Party on there since it is Joy-Con focused, but you do need to connect Joy-Cons to it. So you can use it, but it's not exactly... You have to actually have the extra Joy-Con. So every game that can be played on the Switch can be played on the Switch Lite, but you have to have extra controllers in order to actually do that. So it's not exactly the most convenient option, but it is there.
And I guess also one limitation as well is there's no kickstand. So games like Mario Party, you have to kind of prop up the Switch Lite to play. Or I guess you can just sort of huddle around a table or something. But yeah, it still does the job.
I took some pictures as much as I could, tried to test as much as I could find with the Switch Lite and everything else, but best I can say is it is a very solid system that for those who prefer to have a bit more handheld with their handheld gaming, this will do the job. If kids are interested in a Switch and they prefer to do the handheld gaming, this is kind of the way to go. It feels like a good, solid system. It has all the functionality that you come to expect, just outside of what I've listed before. Big one not being able to dock, but overall, I don't really have any major complaints about it outside of the fact that, do you want to have a Switch that can actually switch between dock and console? It's not for you. If you're okay with it not being there and having a Switch that's more dedicated to handheld gaming, this is a good option.
Right, and like $100 is a third of the price. So this thing is pretty affordable for a specific audience. And of course, as you say, not being able to dock is going to turn some people off. But for other people, mainly kids, I think this system's really going to take off. And it sounds like it doesn't really have that many compromises outside of not being able to output to the TV, which for some people is a huge compromise, but for others, they won't even know. Like, some people never play docked. Yeah, so it sounds like a pretty well-rounded system. Any other thoughts on this thing, Derek?
Yeah, the only other thing I can think of as maybe a slight detriment compared to the original is that the volume seems to be slightly lower at max volume. Like I was trying to do it like very unscientific, but I had Mario Maker running on both systems and turned it up to the max and tried to listen to see which one was louder, and it felt like the original Switch was just a little louder. Still fine, like it wasn't like it was a major difference, but just a slight difference is that as far as that's concerned.
I guess on the topic of differences, did you get a good look at the viewing angles? Like if you're looking at it from the side, could you still see the screen properly?
A bit. I got a little taste of that as I was trying to record me playing gameplay in front of the camera, so I had it's going at a weird angle as far as that's concerned, and I seem to be able to see it fine. It was a little darkened to make it a little harder that way, but I don't think I had too much of an issue. But also, with you playing it in handheld, having it at different angles, I think you're going to be straight on most of the time anyway.
Sure. Yeah, I think for the primary Switch, for the main Switch, it's kind of detrimental to have those good viewing angles because it's a multiplayer system. Whereas it's not quite as important with this one. This is mainly a solo unit.
Yeah, I'll put it this way. When I was using the gyro for aiming arrows in Breath of the Wild, I didn't have any issue being able to see it.
Well, it sounds really good, actually, the Switch Lite. I mean, you get a better battery than the default Switch, even though the new Switch technically has a better battery. It's more portable. It sounds like it has very few compromises in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, it's a fine little system. It really does come down to whether or not you want to focus on handheld gaming or being able to go back and forth between handheld and console gaming. That's really the only major thing, and honestly the big takeaway I had from all this is I want an actual Joy-Con with a D-pad.
Yeah.
It felt really good.
I guess that's the biggest pro about this thing. Some people might even buy it just for that D-pad.
Yeah, it could be. It'd be great for the 2D gaming, so if you want to play Mario Maker or Donkey Kong Country or any number of indie games 2D-wise, there you go, a D-pad.
Right, I think that's everything for today. The Switch Lite comes out in just over a month on September 20th, the same day as Link's Awakening, and we're going to have a lot more coverage on that here on the channel. So until then, be sure to subscribe to Game Explain for a lot more on the Switch Lite, and of course ring that bell as well, and other things gaming too. Until next time, Bye.